I'm really enjoying filming with my phone. It does a really good job, and, pardon the mess. All right, let me move some stuff around. It's called a workbench because I'm working, all right? And this is our Windows NAS that we're building. And so in the last episode, you saw me get it configured with Windows, set up some basic file sharing, and we had a whole kerfuffle over how best to set up these drives. Well, actually, it wasn't a kerfuffle on my part. I just showed you some of the various options. The idea behind this whole server is to not have to spend any extra money on any extra software or to have to use something Linux-based, something you're unfamiliar with. This is a way for you to set up a home NAS running Windows as your operating system if you so dare, and how to do it soup to nuts. So today I've done some hardware upgrades on it. Number one is I upgraded the small SSD. This is going to be a Plex, MB, and Jellyfin media server as well as being a NAS. So we need some storage to store all that metadata, and it needs to be reasonably fast. So I had one of these FICWAT 1 terabyte SATA NVMe drives laying around. I popped that in there and replaced this much smaller 256 gig NVMe drive that was in there. So, we took a little performance hit, but at least we got more storage space. Now, as you know, we also have the let me move this thing onto its side real quick. We also have the Gigabyte GTX 1650 card in here, which is fine for what we're going to be using it for. We're going to use it to transcode if we need to. It would be better if we had an Intel chip in here and use the built-in Intel video, but we don't. We have an AMD Ryzen 7 1700X. We can upgrade the RAM on this, and I think that'll probably be the next thing I do on this. So, unless some of you have a couple of 16 gig or a couple of 8 gig sticks of DDR4 RAM or DDR3 RAM, whatever this takes, it's an AM4 motherboard, laying around, you want to send it to me, hey, feel free. Just let me know. What I did do, and so there's the new SSD NVMe drive. So what I did do is purchase a Mellanox ConnectX 3 card for this. And I could only find one with dual SFP, so that's what I got. And then I'm going from dual SFP plus, I should say. And then I'm going from SFP plus to an adapter transceiver that Metacurve sent me to 10 base T, and then that goes to a Cat 7 cable and then back to my switch. So that's how I've got the oh my goodness, this thing is not light. So that's how I've got our networking set up with 10 gig. Again, I'm using the video card, the GTX 1650. I'm not using the onboard NIC. There's no need to. And yeah, it's doing well. So let's go over to the workstation, or go over to my workstation now, and we're going to set up some more advanced features on this NAS so we can get it up and running and make it useful in your home. So one of the things that makes a NAS sometimes is the ability to run applications. Now, in a Linux environment like running Unraid or like TrueNAS or FreeNAS, something like that, it's critical that you have an app store, because you might want to run, some Docker images. You may want to run something out of an app store. You may want to run a particular program like Radar or Tonar. But those are for advanced folks. We're just playing around here in Windows. I want to keep it as simple as possible. But I want to give you the ability to run Linux and specifically Docker containers if your heart so desires. So there's a couple of different ways we can do this. Now, I've already got Hyper-V installed on here, and we could, in theory, roll up a Hyper-V machine and load Linux, Debian, or Ubuntu under that virtual machine. And then we could load Docker on there, and then we could load Portainer on there. But why? Well, I mean, that is one way to do it. It is kind of a good way of keeping things organized, but we also have something under Windows called WSL and now WSL-2. And I think you'll find that it may be just as easy to just run it under Windows subsystem for Linux. So I'm going to show you the basics of how we get WSL set up on our Windows NAS, and then once we're done with that, we'll go back and do sharing. I need to reshare some drives and stuff like that, and we'll talk about something a little more advanced. So first thing I'm going to do, let's get Task Manager up. I like to have Task Manager up and see what's going on with my system. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on the Windows Start button or Start menu and go over to Terminal and left click on Terminal Admin, and that'll give me admin access out at the terminal. Now you can do what's called let's type this in: WSL list online, and this will tell you the various copies or types or flavors of Linux that are available to you. And for our little thing today, we're going to install Debian. Actually, I think we'll do Ubuntu, just kind of keep it, everybody's running Ubuntu. I prefer Debian, but you can do what you want. Now, one thing I need to tell you is there's a couple of different ways to install WSL, and probably not the way you're thinking. So let me show you the convoluted way to set it up. See if I can figure it out. We'll go to Windows Start, go to Settings, then we'll go to Apps, and then we'll go to Advanced Apps, and then yeah, I have no idea. Let's go back here to Apps. Let's see, Apps for Website, Startup, Installed. Yeah, I didn't see it under Advanced. So I'm going to have to go old school. So I'm going to go out to the control panel, because this is how I've always installed Windows components. We're looking for the window components. So we'll go into there, go under Programs, and then turn Windows Features on or off. Now you would think you just click on this. So I've already got Hyper-V enabled. That's great. But you would think I just go down here and click on Windows Subsystem for Linux. And if I do that, that isn't enough. You see this little option right here, Virtual Machine Platform? So if you hover over that, enables platform support for virtual machines, whereas Windows Subsystem for Linux provides services and environments for running native Linux user mode, Linux shells, and tools on Windows. So that is one way to enable it. I'm going to cancel on here, and I'm just going to do everything at ye old command line. So come right along with me. So if I just type WSL -install and leave it at that, it's going to install WSL with the default Ubuntu install, which is, I think, 2404. If I wanted to install a different version, you see those names up there? I would do WSL-install and then a -D, and then the name of the distribution I wanted to install. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do the basic WSL --install, hit enter, and let's see what happens. So once you do that, it's going to trigger some things on your workstation. And be sure you're in a position where you can reboot after you've installed these or enabled these features, because you're going to need to do that in order to have access to them. So this will take a few minutes to install. Don't think it's locked up. So while we're waiting for that install to complete, I'll just show you here the SATA drive is now the 1 terabyte SATA drive. We're getting pretty good speeds on it. It's not doing a lot of reading and writing. And then the Ethernet controller is right here. This is the Mellanox Connect X3 Pro. I got this off of eBay for like $20. And the reason I didn't use one that I already had was because I didn't have the right bracket for the card that I had. and I wanted a dual adapter. So they're both in there working and working well. And then of course there's my my very large 29 terabyte striped volume. So that took roughly 5 minutes, and it has installed the feature we needed, or enabled it, and has installed Ubuntu. Now it says the changes will not be effective until the system is rebooted. So I'm going to go ahead and reboot, and we'll come back. So we rebooted, so let's go back out and see if... so we'll right-click on the Windows Start menu, go to Terminal under Admin, click Yes. It'll bring us up to a terminal, and then usually what I do is come right up here, and if I see something like this, that usually means Ubuntu has been installed. So let's try to click on that. You'll see that Ubuntu actually hasn't been installed. It just downloaded the stub file to install Ubuntu when we turned that feature on. So actually now it's going to do the actual install of Ubuntu. And while that's going on, I want to show you something. Well, we need to go ahead and create a username. So we're going to use Adama, and we'll give him a super secret password. Then we'll go and look at something very interesting. And so there you are. We've got Ubuntu 24.04.1 up and running. So we could do a sudo apt update, enter our sudo password, make sure we get our everything up to date here. You want to do that with any install you run, and do sudo apt upgrade, and you could have put a -y after that. I forgot to, but here I'll just hit Y for yes, and we'll let it do the install and update, get Ubuntu all updated for us. But it is Linux running under Windows. Yeah, I mean that, you know, you want to go to the Linux desktop, that's great, but try this first. Anyway, I'm going to right click, and we're going to go up to settings, and then we're going to look for, type in control panel again, because I want to show you. Go to control panel, go to programs, and you'll see now, I want you to look here on the screen and tell me what you see. Do, 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 do. I see the virtual machine platform loaded, but I don't see I don't see Windows Subsystem for Linux running. Yeah, neither do I. And don't ask me why Windows 11 does that. I don't know if this is just Windows Subsystem for Linux version 1. I honestly don't know. But you know what? If it ain't broke, I'm not going to fix it. And it appears to not be broke because Ubuntu is running, right? So we could do, what, htop? Okay. How about ntop? Okay, how about just top? There we go. So there's top. We should be able to apt install htop if we want to. No, oh, we have to do sudo apt install htop, and there we go. It'll install that, and then we can run htop, and there you go. They'll give you an idea of what we're running on. And so yeah, there's Linux. That's how hard it was to install Linux on our Windows NAS. Now we've got Windows, or we've got the Linux portion installed, but how about Docker? Well, it's very simple. You just go to the Docker page and find out the instructions on how to install Docker under Ubuntu, and you follow their prompts, which is exactly what I'm going to do right now. So install Docker. I'm just going to go out and type install Docker on Ubuntu. And let's see what it says to do. So There's some things we want to do first. They want to make sure that we don't have any old Docker packages in there. We don't, because we have, we just don't. So I'm going to try and copy and paste these commands from their website and see if that's if it's going to work. Okay, there's that one. Now we need to add the repository. So we'll do that with this. There you go. And then we'll do another update to get those repositories updated. And there we go. So now we want to run the latest version of Docker. So all I'm going to do is run this command here. Tell it yes. And it'll go off and install Docker. All right, so there's Docker is now installed. Let's make sure it's working. So we'll do a hello world. Oh, didn't mean to do that. There we go. So it pulled the image and found it, and great. So now I want to install Portainer. And for those of you that don't know what Portainer is, it is a front end or a management interface for Docker. It just makes your life a whole lot easier. Now, the first thing we want to do is create a volume to contain our data. So that's what I'm going to do, but it's going to fail because I need to do sudo. Got to remember, always do sudo. And then we're going to run this command here. And we're going to put it on, to download and install the Portainer server container. Okay. So I'm going to copy that, paste it, but we need to come back up here and type sudo. And it should go out, download the package, and install Portainer. Now, okay, it's Docker space PS. Not Dicker, Docker. And we're going to get denied because that's the one I need to do the sudo on. There we go. So it tells us it's got Portainer running. So I should be, in theory, able to connect to Portainer at that IP address. Let's do localhost 9443. There we go. All right. And then we'll create a user. And give it a password. Create the user and go to get started. Go to local. And Bob's your uncle. There's our Docker. There's our this is our hello world container. We can go ahead and get rid of that. And then on the images, we can get rid of the hello world image as well. And there you see we're running Docker and Portainer under Windows Subsystem for Linux. And now, when you close, say I log out, okay? If we come back here to Terminal Administrator, we can type in WSL list verbose, and that'll tell us now Ubuntu has stopped. So once you log out of your session of Ubuntu and or close the window that's running, you're going to need to remember, in order to have Docker and those capabilities running, you're going to have to come back over here and go to Ubuntu and let your Ubuntu instance boot up. Now, we're going to try one more little test after it boots up. We're going to close that window, but we're going to come out here and see if that actually got rid of Ubuntu or not. So we'll go out to the command prompt and we'll type in list verbose. Now, Ubuntu is still running. We're going to give it a minute or two just to make sure it doesn't shut down again. And I think it will. Yeah, see, it's going to stop. So now that we're in here, if we type in NVIDIA-SMI, it already has the drivers loaded for our GTX 1650. So not only will we be able to use that card under Windows, but our Windows subsystem for Linux, any Linux machines or Docker containers, we would be able to share that video card with as well. So it's often quite handy to have, if you need to run a Docker image or something like that as a one-off, it's always handy to have Linux running on your NAS, or to have the ability to run, Docker images on your NAS. It's going to make your life a whole lot easier. Now, that being said, I'm just going to go ahead and log out because I have no further need for Ubuntu right now. And then we'll update this screen a couple of times just to show you that it does eventually shut down Ubuntu. And one of the ways you'll know it shut it down is this VMM WSL. You'll see how it's using less and less memory all the time, and then eventually it'll just kind of go away as it releases all the RAM and stops the virtual machine. So if you don't need it running, you don't need to run it. But if you do, just come up here, go to Ubuntu, let it run, and then you can minimize that window. Now there's one more little thing I want to do with Ubuntu. Sudo apt install, was it ntop or is it btop? I want to get btop. I really like btop. Btop is just like Task Manager for Windows, but it's under Linux. So if you ever need it, so then we'll just do sudo btop. And as you can see, that gives you quite a big view. And actually, you can change the views. You can go to different presets up here. This is the one I like, where it tells me all my services that are running. It tells me how many cores I have in use. Tells me where does the video appear on here? Let's see. I don't think the video appear. Yeah, there it is. GPU totals right down there. Let's change the filter again. Let's change the view. There we go. Yeah, and it does tell us, where is the GPU? There we go, total GPU totals. But again, I like the one where it's showing me all the programs running as well. And it shows me my RAM free and my swap space. But again, what you choose to do is what you choose to do. And to get out of this, you just do a Control-C. And then I'm going to go ahead and log out of Ubuntu and let it shut down. And there you go. That's how you install the Windows subsystem for Linux. Because it's going to come in very handy in the future for doing other things. And running potentially applications that are not available under Windows as a Windows app. Now, in the prior video, I showed you how to set up simple file sharing, but say you wanted to start using users and having that control the access. That's fairly simple. You come down here to your Windows Start button and you right click on it. And one of the options under here is computer management. Let's click on that. And then go to local users and groups and then go under users. Now, there is another way to do this. Under Windows 11, you go here, you go to the settings, you go to accounts, you go to other users, add other users, and then of course they want the person's sign-in information. You have to cancel through it. I want to add a user without a Microsoft. What a pain in the ass. Thanks, Microsoft, for taking something that was so simple and screwing it up again. So I'm just going to come back here to computer management. I'm going to go to the users field and right click and go new user. And we're going to type in Bill Smith. Actually, we'll do B Smith. And his full name is Bill Smith. And his password is PASSW0RD20. Let's do this. PASSW0RD2024. PASSW0RD2024. Did I see 24 or 25? We're going to take this option off and we're going to say the password never expires. And we're going to create. So now we have Bill Smith. All right, great. So now let's go back down here to our pooled drive, which is drive letter P. We have an archive folder here. And then under here we have video, music, photos, video. Actually, we should have, I want to share all three of these without having to do it individually. So what I need to do is create another directory here at the root. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to do new folder. And I'm going to call that media. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, well, I needed to create that under the archive folder. Pardon me. I'm a bad man. So let's create it here. We'll call it media. And then we'll take music, photos, and videos. And I'm going to right click after I've selected all three of them. And I'm going to cut them. And under media, I'm going to paste them. So that just effectively moved them under that media folder. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back here to media. I'm going to right click. I'm going to go to properties. And I'm going to go to sharing. I'm going to go advanced sharing. I'm going to share this folder, media. Permissions. Now, here's where the permissions come in. So everyone is going to be able to read from that folder, and that's fine. But if I want somebody to be able to change the folder, I'm going to need to add that user. So I'm going to add that user, and that username is going to be Adama. Let's see if we can check the name. Yeah, Zeus Adama. And we want Zeus Adama to have full control. All right. Now there's someone else we want to have control, but not of this folder. So I'm going to go ahead and tell it okay. I'm going to apply it, okay, close. And now that folder is shared. Now I'm going to create a new folder. And I'm going to call it public. I'm going to create another folder and call it apps. And on the apps folder, again, we're going to share it, advanced, share it, permissions. We're going to add Adama to be able to write to it. And everyone else is going to be able to read from it. We'll apply those permissions, tell it okay, apply an okay, and close it. And one more folder. And public is a shared public folder. So we're going to right click on that, go to properties, go to sharing, advanced sharing, share it, permissions, and everyone, we're going to allow them to read. That's it. But for certain individuals like Bill Smith or B Smith, I think we can do it both ways. We'll find out here. For B Smith, yeah. B Smith is going to have change rights. And apply. And then Adama is going to have full control. And we'll apply that. Great. So now we can go over to another location and we can actually log in to that, or go out and search for that share and connect to it. And so that's kind of a more advanced way to share files and folders. And you can look at my previous video to see how I tested that file share. You can basically go to any computer on the network and come back and enter its IP address. And then you will see the shared folders. So we got apps, got media, and we got public. It's that simple.
I've been watching old Unky Joe. From Texas heat to where the cacti grow. Fixing server, solar power in the land. Hoping that his plans all stand. Making life a touch more bright underneath those southern lights.